Celebrate.
How dare you touch me, you gay bitch?
Everyone in the studio thought this was just another routine interview with Prince. Then the reporter crossed a line. She touched him without asking. Live on camera. Prince didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't react the way anyone expected. He just looked at her. And in that exact second, the entire set went quiet. Because what happens next decides whether this turns into a scandal or one of the most controlled power moves ever caught on live TV. The thing about Prince is that he doesn't need words to communicate. He never has. His whole life has been about expressing what others can't articulate, through music, through movement, through silence. And on this particular afternoon, in a studio filled with cameras and crew, and the artificial brightness of television lights, Prince is about to teach everyone watching a lesson about boundaries that will be replayed for decades. It starts innocently enough. The reporter is young, enthusiastic, probably a little starstruck. She's been preparing for this interview for weeks. Questions written and rewritten. Outfits considered and reconsidered. This is Prince, the man who doesn't do interviews often, who guards his privacy like a fortress, who exists in a realm somewhere between mortal and myth. She's nervous. You can see it in the way she adjusts her notes, the way she crosses and uncrosses her legs, the way she keeps glancing at the camera, then at Prince, then back at her notes. And Prince, sitting across from her, is perfectly still, perfectly composed, wearing something that probably cost more than her car, something purple and tailored and impossible to define. His hair immaculate. His posture relaxed, but alert, like a panther pretending to sleep. The interview begins. Standard questions. Safe territory. His latest album. His tour. His creative process. Prince answers in that way he has measured. Thoughtful. Revealing nothing while seeming to reveal everything. His voice is soft but clear. He doesn't waste words. Every syllable is intentional. The first 15 minutes pass smoothly. Prince talks about his creative process, about how songs come to him in dreams, about the spiritual nature of music. He's generous with his answers, more open than usual. The reporter is gaining confidence. She's laughing at his subtle jokes, nodding enthusiastically, leaning in. And that's when it happens. The reporter, trying to make a point, trying to connect, trying to bridge the gap between interviewer and subject, reaches out. Her hand moves across the space between them. And before Prince can react, before anyone can process what's happening, she touches his arm. Not aggressively, not violently, just a touch. A casual, familiar gesture. The kind of thing people do in conversation all the time. The kind of thing that, in any other context, with any other person, might mean nothing. Her fingers land on his forearm, just above his wrist, as she's making some point about connection in his music. But this isn't any other person. This is Prince. And Prince doesn't move. He doesn't pull away, doesn't recoil, doesn't say a word. He just stops. Everything about him stops. The easy flow of conversation, the slight movement of his hands as he spoke, the gentle nod he'd been giving as he listened, the subtle animation in his eyes. Stopped. And then he looks at her. It's not a glare. It's not anger. It's something more profound than that. It's a look that says, you just crossed a line you didn't know existed. A look that says, I am not yours to touch. A look that says, you have made a fundamental error in understanding who I am and what I allow. His eyes, usually so expressive, so full of life and mischief, go completely flat. Not cold, exactly, but absent of warmth, absent of the connection they'd been building. It's like watching a door close in real time. Like watching someone pull back every ounce of energy they'd been extending. The reporter's hand freezes. She realizes, in that instant, what she's done. Her smile falters. Her eyes widen. The color drains from her face. She pulls her hand back like she's touched fire, like she's made contact with something forbidden. The crew members behind the cameras exchange glances. The camera operators keep filming, but their body language shifts. The sound guy's eyes go wide. The producers in the booth lean forward, suddenly alert. The makeup artist, standing in the wings, stops mid-motion, brush suspended in air. Everyone in that studio suddenly understands they're witnessing something. Not a meltdown, not a scandal, but a boundary being drawn in real time. Prince still hasn't spoken. The silence stretches. 5 seconds, 10, an eternity in television time. The kind of dead air that sends producers into panic, that makes editors scramble, that creates awkward energy viewers can feel through their screens. But no one moves. No one cuts to commercial. No one intervenes. Because everyone is waiting to see what Prince will do. This moment, this freeze-frame instant, is about more than a touch. It's about ownership, about the assumption that fame means access, that celebrity means public property, that because Prince performs, because he entertains, because he gives his art to the world gets to take from him in return. Prince has spent his entire life fighting this assumption. From the moment he stepped into the spotlight, people have felt entitled to him, to his time, his energy, his body, his space. They've grabbed at him after shows, tearing at his clothes like he's a piece of fabric they can take home, followed him to his car, cameras flashing, questions screaming, showed up at his home, at Paisley Park, demanding audience like he owes them his private life, touched him without asking, like he's a statue in a museum instead of a human being with skin and nerves and a very clear sense of personal space. And every time, he's had to decide how to respond, whether to make a scene, whether to be polite and uncomfortable or honest and difficult, whether to protect himself or protect their feelings, whether to preserve his image as gracious and accessible or preserve his sanity. Most of the time, he chooses himself, but quietly, stepping back, creating distance, letting his security handle it, disappearing into green rooms and tour buses and private spaces where hands can't reach him. But this time, there's no security between them, no barrier, no escape route. Just him and this reporter, and cameras rolling, and a choice that has to be made right now, in this moment, with the world watching. The look continues. The reporter is starting to panic now. You can see it in her breathing, which has gone shallow and quick, in the way her throat moves as she swallows, once, twice, in the slight tremor that's entered her hands as she grips her notes too tightly. She's trying to figure out how to salvage this, how to move past this moment, how to undo what cannot be undone. "I'm sorry," she stammers, and her voice cracks slightly. "I didn't mean." Prince raises a hand. Not threatening, not aggressive, just a gesture. "Stop." The hand rises slowly, palm out, fingers together. A universal signal. No more. And then, finally, he speaks. "Don't touch me," he says. 4 words, delivered without heat, without anger, without the emotional charge everyone expects. Just fact. Simple, direct, undeniable. His voice is quiet, almost conversational, but it carries the weight of absolute authority. "I didn't give you permission to touch me." The reporter nods, frantic now, desperate to fix this. "I know. I'm so sorry. I just thought." "There is no just." Prince interrupts, and his voice is still calm, still measured, but there's steel underneath. Iron wrapped in velvet. "There's what you want to do, and what I consent to. Those are 2 different things, and you didn't ask for my consent." The studio is a tomb. No one breathes. No one moves. The camera operators have stopped adjusting their angles. The producers have stopped whispering into their headsets. Even the hum of the equipment seems quieter, like the machines themselves are holding their breath. This isn't just about this moment anymore. This is about every moment like it. Every fan who's grabbed him at airports, at restaurants, at gas stations. Every photographer who's gotten too close, invading his space for a shot. Every person who's treated his body like community property, like something they have a right to access, simply because they've bought his records or attended his shows. "I understand people want to connect," Prince continues, and now his voice softens slightly, becomes almost educational, not condescending, not angry, but clear, like a teacher explaining a concept to a student who genuinely doesn't understand. I understand that touch is how humans communicate. It's natural. It's how we show affection, how we emphasize points, how we build rapport. But I'm a person, not a product, not a prop, not a possession, and my body is mine. You don't get to decide when and how it's touched. I do. He pauses. Let's that sink in. Let's everyone in the studio, everyone who will eventually watch this, understand the fundamental truth he's laying down. When you touch someone without asking, you're making a choice for them. You're deciding that your need to connect is more important than their need for space. And that's not connection. That's violation. Even if you mean well. Even if you're excited. Even if you think it's harmless. The reporter looks like she wants to disappear into the floor. Her face is red now, flushed with embarrassment and shame. You're absolutely right. I apologize. That was completely inappropriate, and I should have known better. Prince nods once, accepts it, studies her for a moment to see if the lesson has truly landed. And just like that, the tension breaks. Not completely, but enough. The air becomes breathable again. He shifts in his chair, a small movement that signals the moment has passed. The interview could continue, could end. It's his choice now. It's always been his choice. Let's move on, he says. And they do. The reporter, shaken but trying to recover, returns to her questions. Her voice is smaller now, more careful. She keeps her hands in her lap, clasped together like she's afraid of what they might do if left unsupervised. Prince answers. The interview continues. But everyone knows something fundamental has shifted. A line has been drawn. A lesson has been taught. The dynamic has changed forever. What makes this moment so powerful is not the confrontation. It's the control. Prince doesn't lose his temper, doesn't storm off set, doesn't create drama for drama's sake, doesn't throw the kind of tantrum that celebrities are famous for. He simply states his boundary, clearly, firmly, without apology, without shame, without making himself smaller to accommodate someone else's comfort. Because that's the thing people forget about boundaries. They're not mean, they're not rude, they're not evidence of being difficult or demanding or high maintenance. They're necessary. They're how we protect our humanity in a world that constantly tries to strip it away. And the people who respect them are the ones worth keeping around. The people who violate them, who get defensive when called out, who act like you're the problem for having limits, those are the people who were never safe to begin with. Prince learned this lesson early. Growing up in Minneapolis, in a household where boundaries were blurry and safety was conditional, where his father's temper could explode without warning, where his mother's love came with strings attached, where he learned young that the only way to survive was to build walls, create distance, protect the soft parts of himself from people who didn't know how to be gentle. And then he entered the music industry, which chews up sensitive souls and spits them out broken, an industry that wanted to package him, market him, control him, own him, that wanted to decide what he wore, what he sang, who he loved, how he presented himself to the world, an industry that saw him as a commodity first and a person second. He learned that the word no is complete, that I'm uncomfortable doesn't need justification, that his body, his space, his energy are his to protect, not selfishly, not cruelly, but necessarily, because if he didn't protect himself, no one else would. And he's been protecting them ever since. Not with walls that keep everyone out, not with isolation that prevents connection, but with clear, consistent boundaries that allow intimacy on his terms. He performs for thousands, giving everything on stage, pouring his soul into every note. He gives generously to his fans, creating music that speaks to their pain, their joy, their longing. He creates art that requires vulnerability, that demands he expose parts of himself and most people keep hidden. But he does it on his terms, with his consent. within his control. The stage is his space, governed by his rules. The music is his gift, offered freely but not taken forcibly. And his body, his physical being, remains his own, always. The interview ends, the cameras cut, the bright lights dim. The reporter apologizes again, more profusely this time, and Prince is gracious but firm. He accepts her apology. He doesn't shame her further, but the lesson stands, unmoved, unchangeable. In the days after, the clip circulates. It spreads through entertainment news, through social media, through conversations in break rooms and living rooms across the world. Some people think Prince overreacted. It was just a touch, they say. She didn't mean anything by it. He could have been nicer about it. He embarrassed her on national television. But that's exactly the point. Intent doesn't erase impact. Wanting to connect doesn't give you the right to violate someone's space. And embarrassment is a powerful teacher. Sometimes people need to feel the full weight of their actions to truly understand why those actions were wrong. Others see it differently. They see a man who knows his worth, who understands that allowing small violations leads to bigger ones, who recognizes that every time he lets someone cross a boundary without consequence, he teaches them that his boundaries don't matter, that he doesn't matter, that his comfort is less important than their desire. For many people, especially those who've struggled with saying no, who've been taught that politeness means accommodating everyone, who felt guilty for having needs and limits, this moment becomes a revelation, a permission slip, a blueprint for how to advocate for yourself. Because Prince shows them what it looks like to protect yourself without aggression, to establish boundaries without cruelty, to be firm without being mean, to say no without apologizing for it. He doesn't shame the reporter beyond what's necessary to make the point, doesn't humiliate her for sport, doesn't make this about punishment. He just corrects her, states his truth, maintains his dignity, shows everyone, that boundaries can be enforced with calm clarity rather than explosive anger. And in doing so, he gives permission to everyone watching to do the same. To say, "Don't touch me," when someone touches them without asking. To say, "I'm not comfortable with that," when someone crosses a line. To say no without explanation, without apology, without guilt. To understand that their body is their own, and no one else gets a vote on how it's treated. Because boundaries aren't about being difficult. They're about being human, about recognizing that your body is yours, your space is yours, your energy is yours. And no one, not even someone who means well, not even someone who's excited to meet you, not even someone who thinks they're being friendly, gets to decide how those things are used. Prince understood this on a cellular level. He built his entire career on autonomy, on owning his masters, when that was almost unheard of for black artists, on controlling his image when record labels wanted to market him as something safe and palatable, on dictating his narrative when the industry wanted to tell his story for him. He fought record labels, promoters, managers, executives, anyone who tried to tell him what he should be, how he should look, what he should create. And he won. Not because he was mean, not because he was impossible to work with, but because he was unmovable, because he knew his value and refused to negotiate it. Because he understood that the moment you compromise on your boundaries, you teach people that your boundaries are negotiable. The look he gave that reporter wasn't anger. It was clarity, the clearest communication possible. A mirror held up showing, "This is what you just did. This is how it lands on me. This is why it's not okay. This is the line you crossed. And this is me," clearly and calmly, drawing that line back into place. And the beautiful thing, the powerful thing, is that she got it. She didn't argue, didn't defend her actions, didn't make excuses about being nervous or excited or caught up in the moment. She apologized and moved forward with the knowledge that Prince's boundaries are real and must be respected. That lesson likely changed how she conducted every interview after that day. That's what happens when you set boundaries clearly. The people who care will adjust. The people who respect you will honor your limits. The people who don't will reveal themselves through their defensiveness, their excuses, their insistence that you're being too sensitive. And either way, you'll know who's safe. You'll know who sees you as a person versus who sees you as an object to be accessed. Prince knew who was safe. He'd spent decades figuring it out, watching who respected his no, who honored his space, who treated him like a person instead of a possession, who understood that loving someone, admiring someone, wanting to connect with someone doesn't entitle you to them, who could appreciate his art without demanding ownership of his body. And he built his inner circle from those people, the ones who understood that intimacy requires consent, that connection requires mutual agreement, that you can love someone's work without feeling entitled to their physical presence. The set that day learned something most people never learn, that the most controlled power move isn't raising your voice, it's lowering it, isn't making threats, it's stating facts, isn't creating chaos, it's creating clarity, isn't exploding outward, it's becoming very, very still. Prince didn't freeze the set with anger. He froze it with truth. And truth, delivered calmly, with absolute certainty, is unstoppable. It can't be argued with, it can't be negotiated. It simply is. Years later, that reporter would talk about this moment, not with resentment, but with gratitude, because Prince taught her something she needed to know, about consent, about respect, about the fact that good intentions don't excuse bad actions, about how to honor people's humanity even when you're excited, or nervous, or trying to build rapport. She'd tell other journalists, never assume, never presume, never touch without asking. And if you do, and someone calls you on it, don't defend yourself. Don't make excuses. Don't center your embarrassment over their violated boundary. Listen, learn, apologize genuinely. Do better next time. That's the legacy of that look, that frozen moment, that silent, powerful declaration of self-ownership. Prince Rogers Nelson. Artist, icon, revolutionary, human being with boundaries. A man who taught the world that no is a complete sentence, that your body is your own, that respect isn't given conditionally, it's given always, or not at all. And when someone crosses your line, you don't have to yell, you don't have to rage, you don't have to create a scene. You just have to look them in the eye and say, "Don't touch me." 4 words, complete, final, true. The set went quiet that day, but the message rang loud, echoed through studios and newsrooms and living rooms everywhere. And everyone watching learned that the most powerful thing you can do isn't to accept violation with a smile. It's to reject it with clarity. Prince did that. 1 look, 4 words, a lifetime of self-respect distilled into a single moment. And the entire set understood. This man is not yours to touch. He never was. He never will be. His body, his rules, his boundary. Non-negotiable.